And guys, we are videoing this, so be careful what you say. You don't wanna. Perfect. Cool. All right. Thank you guys for coming. We always like to start these conversations with introducing who's in the room to see who you can actively do business with. So just show of hands, who here is actively doing fix and flips? Anybody? Fix and flips? Okay. Lending. Soft or hard money, right? Traditional financing or hard money, right? Who here is doing short-term rentals? All right. Who here is doing multifamily? All right. Retail, commercial, property management. All right. And then we have Dr. Joe, who is extremely specialized in Section 8 rentals, right? Mostly in PG County in Washington, D.C., right? So the one thing that we like to do before this is, guys, we host these every single month. We want you to come, take the education, learn something. More importantly, we want you to interact with the people that are in this room and go out and actively do business with the people that are here. This is a platform for you to go and be doing deals because people in this room are actively doing, buying, selling, financing deals. So build the relationships here and then take them outside. We do them every single month. We have different topics. So thank you, Dr. Joe, for joining us. Let's give him a round of applause. And so I'll give a quick intro. I met Dr. Joe one time at a previous investor meetup. He is Bigger Pockets famous, right? So that's really where you've really a platform that has been great for you, and you specialize in Section 8 rentals and luxury Section 8 rentals. So I'm excited, just like everyone else is, to learn. We're going to make this interactive. It's not going to be a panel discussion. Dr. Joe is going to display his 40 plus years of knowledge, 35 years of knowledge to us. He's been how many cycles? 6 cycles, right? 6 real estate cycles. So he's understanding the good, the bad. So excited to hear what you have to say, and we'll answer questions throughout the presentation. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. First of all, I'm happy to be here, and my goal today is to provide you with information, quality information, no fluff. Just get down to the point of the reality of the real world. And I want to make sure that the 1.5 hours that you spent here, you'll go back and say, man, God, that was the best 1.5 hours. That was what I liked. So, okay, my name is Joe Asamoah. Some people call me Dr. Joe. And I was originally from Ghana. And when we were 5 years old, my parents moved to England. I lived in England until I came to the US October the 17th, 1985 at 7:30 on TW 85736. How about that? So after a couple of years, I didn't know anybody when I came here. And after a couple of years, after 6 months of being here, my boss who I was working for got fired from his job. And so we hooked up a few weeks later. And there's a reason I'm sharing the story. And that we went for coffee, and he said to me, hey Joe, this is America, people lose their jobs just like that. Because in England, that doesn't happen. And he said, it's okay for me because I have these rental properties. And this time, this guy had like 10 houses. And I just couldn't fathom how, one house, yeah, 2, maybe 10, who does that? He said, I've got this rental income coming in. So I'm okay. And he said, you better have a plan B, because what happened to me could just as well happen to you. And look into this real estate, and I'll give you some words of wisdom. Start as soon as you can, and if you can, try and keep them, don't sell them. Okay? This is in the 80s, 85, 86 in the DMV. So, I bought my first house, in 87, and it was a complete disaster. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. I'm not going to bore you with the details. But I learned my lesson, and bought another one. I was working full time, and so while doing the real estate, I was working as well. And I used to travel quite a bit around the country and also around the world. So I had a pretty hectic schedule. And I reached the point in 2003 when my income from my job equaled what I was making for my rentals. So I was able to transition out of the corporate world into the full-time real estate. So I've been doing full-time real estate for about 22 years, and so what I'm sharing with you is based on that experience and of what works, what doesn't work. I've been through a lot of cycles, and so I've got a lot of wisdom which hopefully I'll share with you. I focused on Section 8. I kind of stumbled on it. I know you've all got stereotypes of Section 8, you know, you got to clip the ramp with a bulletproof vest, you know, take a holster just in case, just in case you get shot at, you know. I've got all the stereotypes that go with the but believe me, it's not always like that. Now, it does happen, but not with my tenants anyway. I stumbled on it because I had a house up in Washington. I used to live in DC, and I had a house which I lived in, and so my wife wanted to move to Maryland, so I wanted to stay in DC. She didn't want to stay in DC, so we moved over to Maryland, and so we started renting. I wanted to rent this house, okay, and so I lived in this house and I was put out for rent. I'll never forget this story. This lady came to my house where I lived at, okay, and she looks around and said, "Nice house." She had a voucher. And she said, "Well, you know, your house doesn't have a jacuzzi." Your house doesn't have stainless steel appliances. Where's your hardwood floors? I mean, I lived in this house. So what she was essentially telling me was that my house wasn't worthy of her. Okay, so I'm looking at this and saying, what the hell is going on here? You know, I know now what was going on. What was going on was that we're in the mid-90s. DC was going through a cycle, and that was when Marion Barry got busted, the control board took over. I don't know if you guys were around that time, but DC was going downhill fast, and so a lot of people were leaving, and we just finished an upcycle. So you had a lot of flippers who were flipping homes. So they'd buy these houses, put jacuzzis in there, stainless steel appliances, all this stuff. And when the market turns, if you're a flipper, you got two choices. Essentially, you can either reduce the price in order to offload it, or you rent it and wait for the cycle to come back. And so essentially what was happening was that this lady was saying to me in a roundabout way, I don't think she studied macroeconomic theory and so on, but essentially she was saying, look, there's a flipper down the street, okay, who's got a house that he can't sell, okay, and he needs to rent it, and he's looking for a tenant like me, a good tenant. So why the hell do I want to choose your house when I can go to their house and the rent's the same? Because their rent is based on their income. Okay, so if you had two choices, a great house and an okay house and the same rent, where are you going to go? You're going to go for the better product. Okay, so that's essentially what was going on, was that I had a product which wasn't worthy of her because this flipper, couldn't sell his house. And so when the market turns on you, all bets are off. If you're an apartment, you'll compete with condos. The condo people can't get rid of it, so they're going to start renting it. And so now if you've got an apartment, you compete with those guys. If you've got a house in an okay neighborhood, you're going to compete with other people who've got better products in better location. So what I did was say, okay then, well, who is this person? This Section 8 lady. I want to understand who this person was. And I think any business owner knows the basics of business is you got to understand who your customer is, what their needs are, what they're looking for, so you can have a product that meets that need. Okay, basic business 101. So I took the time to understand who this. I call them tier 1 voucher holders. Sort of the Nordstroms of the voucher holders, the creme de la creme. Who is this person? What do they want, and what do they not want? What the results were quite enlightening to me. I got to understand who they are, where they want to live, where they don't want to live. Okay, what kind of houses they want, what kind of houses they don't want. Okay, what kind of landlord do they want to rent from, and what kind of landlord they don't want to rent from. Okay, and what I realized was that if I can attract this tier 1 tenant, then it makes a lot of sense. Okay, because the program, the Section 8 program, is based on a very simple concept, which is the rent that you charge is based on two things and two things only. It's based on the location, either the neighborhood, the zip code, or whatever it is, and the number of bedrooms, and that's it. So, therefore, fast forward today, for example, if I buy a 3-bedroom house, anyway, okay, and let's pick on some names. What's your name, please? Rima.
Aida. Lauren.
Okay. Rima, I'm terrible with it. I forgot already. so Rima buys this 3-bedroom house. Okay, she keeps it as 3 bedrooms. Everybody got me? Aida said, okay, well, there's a room I can make into an extra bedroom. So she turns it into a 4-bedroom. Okay, and Lauren turns it into 5 bedroom because she's found 2 of the spaces. Okay, so it's the same asset, same house, but we end up with 3 different rents. Okay, so Rima is negative cash flow. Okay, because the rent for 3-bedroom is not going to cover the debt. 4-bedroom is going to break even. 5-bedroom you can have cash flow because the rent's higher. Okay, and so therefore, even though we're in an expensive jurisdiction like the DMV, it's very, very expensive. There's ways to cash flow if you understand how the program works, how the rents are based. Everyone follow me so far? Mm-hmm. So therefore, essentially, the business model is you buy an asset in a desirable location, add bedrooms, okay, increase the rents, and essentially, once you can increase the rent, you can cash flow. But more importantly, once you get these tier 1 tenants, these Nordstrom tenants, these good tenants, you want to keep them. Okay, because I think any landlord knows the killer in the rental space is turnover. If you can't control turnover is when people leave. You got to paint it again, you got to clean it again, you got no income coming in, you got no cash flow, and you got to start the whole process again. It's very, very time consuming, it's very, very expensive. So typically a turnover on a single family is about 2 to 3 months lost income after all is said and done, and so on. So if your rent's $4,000, every time somebody leaves, you're talking about $8,000 to $12,000 after all is said and done. So if you can't control that, you are dead. I don't care what anybody says. So you could charge higher rent, but if you can't control the expense, turnover cost, you really don't make any money. And so this, when you put all that stuff together, in my opinion, all roads lead to Section 8. Okay, it does. And this is the gist of what I do is I buy C properties, into the ABCD, C, okay properties. I fix them up, okay. But I buy in B areas, better quality areas, okay, and I rent to A tenants, CBA, okay. C quality properties, properties that need work, because then you can get a discount and you can force appreciation, force equity by making improvements. And then, so you turn the C into a B neighborhood, or you buy properties at B prices. Sorry, you buy the C prices at B, once it's fixed at least B level, okay? And then you rent to the creme de la creme tenants, A's, okay? So, so that's the first part. That's the business model. The key to this is finding and attracting and keeping good tenants, okay? If you can't do this, if you can't crack this code, I think you're gonna have a lot of problems. So, what do I do to attract these quality tenants? First of all, you have to understand the mindset of a lot of these voucher holders, and that is essentially they are tired of living in bad houses, in bad areas, and renting from bad landlords. Okay, because what happens is the investors, because the rents are based on, number of bedrooms, they'll buy the cheapest they can find, and so a lot of landlords with quality houses. They have the stereotype, well, these voucher holders are going to tear up my house. So the choices that these voucher holders have is very limited, okay? And really at the end of the day, they're really no different than you and I. They want the same thing that you and I want. They don't want to get shot at no more than you want to get shot at. They're concerned about the safety of their children no more than the same as you are, okay? The only thing is that they don't have the opportunity to go to different places. So what I realized was that if I can provide these properties in these areas, It doesn't have to be in Georgetown, it doesn't have to be Potomac, just not bad areas, okay? It doesn't have to be the creme de la creme, it doesn't have to be Chevy Chase, as long as it's not a bad area where the children aren't safe, okay? And so if you can buy in those areas, then you stand a better chance of attracting them, if that makes sense. Okay, so you buy those houses, and then you buy houses where you can add bedrooms. So typically I buy houses that have basements, and so therefore I typically turn a 3-bedroom into a 5-bedroom, add 2 bedrooms to the basement. Now I'm going to 6 bedrooms now. So I add 2 or 3 extra bedrooms. Obviously there are code requirements for a bedroom. It's got a certain height in the ceiling, it's got to have a minimum of certain 70 square feet, it's got to have egress, it's got to have a closet, it's got to have, there's legal requirements for a bedroom. So you can't just say, well, there's a closet there, let me call that a bedroom, and now I've got a 7-bedroom house. Okay, because the inspection is going to take place, and the inspector has to make sure that you're compliant with the code. So you add extra bedrooms, and therefore you can now appeal to people who have 4, 5, 6-bedroom vouchers. And there's a lot of them out there, okay? Because most of the houses here are 3 bedrooms. And so if you have a 4 or 5-bedroom voucher, it's hard to find 4-bedroom and 5-bedroom houses because they don't exist naturally. It's people like you and I, they're the ones who add bedrooms and we create these 4 or 5, and there aren't enough of us. So typically, people with 4 and 5 and 6-bedroom vouchers have a really hard time trying to find stuff. So if you can have that product in a decent area, you then place it for rent, okay, in Zillow and or these other platforms, and people will call you. Typically for market renters, you look at certain things like credit, what else? Income, and what else do you guys look for? Rental history, and usual stuff. Okay. For vouchers, it's different. Okay, because the rent that I haven't found a voucher holder who's got a 700 credit score before. So if I use 750 as minimal or 730, I'm not going to get it. So credit is really irrelevant. And the fact is, the rent is guaranteed by the federal government, which has a AAA credit. Well, we'll see how that goes. So the guaranteed portion is backed by the federal government. So they have AAA credit and so on. So credit doesn't really become that important when you're dealing in the Section 8 space. Income doesn't really matter as well. For a market rental, obviously they got to have a job, and you got to have a decent paying job in order to pay for the rent. Whereas in the Section 8 program, the rent is based on their income. Okay, so the higher the rent, higher the income, the higher the rent portion. The lower the income, the lower the portion. So it's all based on some calculations done by the housing authority. So it's not really that important. They're not paying the entire rent. So if the rent is let's say $5,000. Let's say to keep it simple, $4,000 is the rent. Okay, you may get a scenario whereby the tenant pays, let's say $500, and the housing authority pays the other $3,500. Does that make sense? And so on. So their portion, the $500, is based on their income. If their income goes high, it may go to $600 or $700. If their income goes lower, it may go down to $300 or $200 and things like that. And this is where the market cycles really play itself out. When the market turns on you, then you have a scenario whereby people lose their jobs. And I think I mentioned earlier on, there's nothing worse than you got a great tenant who loses their job. I mean, they're good people, they just can't pay the rent. And so now, what do you do now? You have to evict them, and so on. Whereas for a housing authority voucher holder, if they lose their job, then their portion of the rent goes down, and the housing authority portion kicks in. So it doesn't matter the business cycle, and that's how I've been able to weather these cycles, because it doesn't matter. In fact, if they lose their job, it's no big deal. It just means that the housing authority's portion goes up. Okay, so I won't say it's recession-proof, but it's definitely recession-resistant. And when you have a large portfolio, if you have a lot of people who can't pay their rent, you can get wiped out real fast. I'm sure COVID, when that happened, a lot of people couldn't pay and didn't want to pay. And a lot of people lost a lot of money and went out of business. Whereas for voucher holders, it didn't make any difference to me. So forth. Everybody got me so far? I'm not going too far ahead, am I? We're good?
That's great.
Okay, so you understand the rationale behind. Do I take questions now?
Yeah, I think probably questions.
I've got two questions.
Sure.
First, for when you acquire a new property, do you immediately get it licensed with the city? Do you immediately go, as that one of your first steps is to go through the process, get updated and inspected?
Yeah, so typically you buy a house, a wholesaler or realtor will show you about a house at 123 Main Street. You look at it, if it meets my criteria in terms of location, price point, bedroom, account, and things like that, I'll then purchase it. And if I'm going to do improvements, which I always do, then obviously you need to get permits, which means that you got to get an architect and get the drawings together, and then the architect files it with the city to get your building permit and navigate through that process. And once you've got the permit, then you can do the renovations. So everything is permitted. You got to do that now. I mean, there was a time earlier on where you kind of close the windows and tell the guys to keep it quiet. That was the good old days. Now you know what's going on. You don't want to stop work order. You don't want to that kind of stuff. So yeah, you get permits, and typically we have 5 permits. You have the demo permit, electrical, building, HVAC, mechanical, and so forth. Yeah.
But you go straight to Section 8. You get it.
No, Section 8 is.
No, but I mean, like as far as getting the housing inspection, you don't even attempt to do market rent. You just go straight to getting it listed as Section 8.
Yeah, because the rents for Section 8 is higher than what you get market. So let's say recently I had a house where the market rent is like $4,000. The Section 8 is paying $5,500. So if I place an ad for $5,500, I mean, which market renter is going to call?
So you're marketing it at voucher or Section 8 limits as well.
Yeah, you market a limit what you can get, and if you go into a higher bedroom count, then you can get higher rents. Okay. Now, if you got 1 and 2 bedrooms and 3, the rents for those are pretty much the same as market. But when you get into the 4, 5, and 6 space, it's typically higher. So if I'm renting something for $6,000 and the market is $4,000, I mean, no market renter is going to call me. They're going to say, what are you smoking? And so by default, you'll get the more calls from the housing authority tenants, Section 8 voucher holders, because they don't care that the rent's $5,000, $6,000. It doesn't matter. All they care about is my portion is $300, $400, $500. It's a different perspective. Okay, if you're a market renter, you want to pay as little as possible, and you want a good deal. But if you're a voucher holder, you want a good deal, but the deal is different. You want to live in a safe neighborhood. You want to live in a house that's a decent house, and you want to rent from a good landlord. It's a different perspective. And so if you have, okay, let's just say this: if you're paying $5,000 a month, okay, how long are you going to stay in your house? At some point, you're going to say, "This is crazy. Let's go buy our own house." We agree? No, at some point, you're going to say, "This is madness." Okay, let's go buy our own house. Okay, so you're living in a $5,000 neighborhood, and you're paying $500. How long are you going to live there? I mean, do we need to debate this? Okay, this is not rocket science. Okay, it's ridiculously simple. If you're paying $500 to live in a $4,000 neighborhood, you want to stay there as long as possible. Okay, if you're paying $5,000 in a $5,000 neighborhood, you're going to say at some point this doesn't make sense. Let's go buy our own house. So the voucher holder comes in from a different perspective. They're not looking to buy this house because they can't get a mortgage anyway. Okay, so they're looking for, I call it pride of rentership, a place where they can feel like they can call this home, a place where they can be stable, a place where my family can be don't have to worry about safety and things like that. And I'll just give you a story, okay? But a couple of years ago, I spoke to one of my tenants, okay? And she says to me, Mr. Joseph, she was with me for 8 years. And she says to me, let me tell you something, Mr. Joseph. By my family living in your house, 2 of my kids have got a full ride to go to college. Okay? A full ride to go to college. And she says, because they've got better neighbors, they got better friends, better school, and things like that. Okay? To her, that was not possible where she was before, because it wasn't, it's a completely different mindset. So what I'm saying is that, we can make money, definitely, but we can also make a difference in people's lives. Huge difference. And when you get these tier 1 tenants, now if you start getting tier 2, tier 3, tier Z, okay, they'll destroy your house in a heartbeat. Okay, so the analogy I use is like, we're all teenagers at one time. It's like giving a new car to a teenager. They're just not mature enough psychologically to handle the responsibility. So they'll go on joy rides, having a good time, party with their friends in the car and so on. Whereas someone who's more mature, you give them a new car, they're going to appreciate the value of this car. They're going to take care of it. They're going to make sure they change the oil and all this kind of stuff. So you have to get tenants who are psychologically ready for this opportunity that you're providing them. Because if they're not, they'll destroy your house just as much as anybody else. Okay, so not all tenants are ready for this kind of opportunity that we're providing. So that's where screening comes in. Okay, and that's what I'm going to talk about next.
Oh, sorry, my question I guess is kind of about that. Like, how do you differentiate between these tiers? That you can't really use income and credit, you're just going off rental history.
Sure. Okay, so it goes down to screening. This is the gist of it all. Okay, because if you make a mistake here, you are finished. Okay, and I think we all know that. If you get a bad tenant, especially if you're in DC, where it's very pro-tenant, you're finished. Okay, it takes you 6 months to a year to 2 years to get somebody out of your house. And they're not going to pay the rent. They're going to destroy it all the way out. So it's tough if you can't screen well. Okay, so what do? I place the ad just like everybody else. I make sure on my ad I put Section 8 welcome. Not Section 8 only, but Section 8 welcome. We stage our homes. I'm trying to differentiate myself from my competition. Because everybody in this room wants this tier 1 tenant. Okay? Nobody wants Nemo who just got evicted yesterday. Okay, or nobody wants Devin who trashed his house on the way out. You see what I'm saying? Everybody wants the tier 1 tenant who's going to pay their rent, take care of the home, pleasant to deal with, no drama, and wants to stay a long time. We all want that person. Okay, so there's a competition now for this tier 1 tenant. We all want them. So why should this tier 1 tenant choose me versus Devin or versus Nemo or versus Naomi and so on? Why should they? Because if you can't answer that question, it's Tweedledee, Tweedledum. It's like flicking tossing a coin. You know what I mean? So you have to make a reason, in my opinion anyway, why they want your house. Because if you can't, then somebody else stands a better chance of getting them. So that's where I start from. How can I differentiate myself from my competition? Okay, and that starts off with the location. Okay. And then, as I said before, I fix it up in such a way it's a nice home. And we stage our homes. So it has the emotional appeal. When people walk in, it's like, it's a home. It's not a rehab. It's not an empty home. It's not a house. It's a home. Okay, so they can figure out, okay, my TV goes here. My couch goes here. My bed can fit in here. And there's no imagination. They can see it for themselves. Okay? Because most landlords don't stage homes. And therefore, that's an immediate differentiator. And so we stage the home. And then I place in the ad. I structure the ad to target my tier 1 tenant. So I talk about the quality of the area. I talk about safety. I talk about a dream home. My goal is to be the world's greatest landlord. Are you? I mean, all this stuff is it's in the act, okay? Because the tier 1 tenant is looking for that kind of landlord. The tier 1 tenant is looking for that kind of home. So I'm trying to talk to them in the ad, okay? And people will then call. And as part of my screening process, it's pretty thorough. And this is what I look for. I call, if they call me, I describe the house. I'm selling the house. And I do open houses every day. Okay, so it's a very aggressive campaign. So if I put the ad in for starts on Saturday, for the next 7 days, I'm going to be at the house every single day at 6 p.m. So if Devin calls me on Tuesday and says, I've seen this house, I'd like to come have a look at it, I say, yeah, I'll be there at 6 o'clock tonight. Okay? If another person calls me on a Thursday, I'll be there tonight at 6 o'clock. Rather than I'll be there on Saturday, because by Saturday, Nemi would have posted. Okay, and somebody else would have posted him, so he may not even get around to see my house on Saturday. So I'm trying to get him when he's ready to see my house immediately. Okay, so I explained to him that, or her, that if you like the home, I have an application form. There's a $25 application fee, and there's 4 things we verify. 4 things we verify. Rental income. I contact the current landlord and previous landlord. And the reason why I call the previous landlord is because the current landlord may have his own agenda. Oh, Devin's great. Oh, yeah, he's so good. I'll pay for the U-Haul truck tonight.
Get him the hell out. Get him the hell out.
Yeah, he's not good. Yeah. I'll pay the security deposit as well. He's not good. Yeah. So the previous landlord, obviously, they got rid of the problem, and they can tell you the real deal as to what kind of person this was. And also, you have to make sure that you actually are speaking to the landlord, because many times they give false information. I also have to, after they fill the application, I like to see an ID. You'll be surprised. I've had people fill out applications because I don't know who they are, and they put somebody else's information on the application form. I don't know. But when you ask for the ID, oh man, I left my ID in the car. And that's how you see it. And so on. So anyway, current landlord, previous landlords, ask a lot of questions. Income and credit, I do mention that, but I don't really pay much attention to that because, again, most people don't have, at least in the voucher space, have very good credit. And credit is not that important because of the fact that the rent is guaranteed.
Question on the previous landlord.
Sure.
What is your, how do you verify? Because in Florida, it's pretty easy to look at, the key donor of the property. Who you, because we had, prime example, we had a tenant that was Section 8. It was a hassle. Pete just had to go through.
Sure.
They put the electric in a fictitious person's name, and we couldn't get it changed back to us. The gas, thank you. Couldn't get it changed back because we weren't renting our own property. Right?
Okay.
It was a crazy situation. But how do you, what's your vetting process on that?
In terms of when I contact the landlords, several questions I ask the landlords. And first of all, I said, I verify who they are. Typically, I verify certain information. I ask basic questions like, do you rent to this person? How long they've been there? And da-da-da. The other question I tend to zero in on is more of, when's the last time you went to the home? Were you happy with the condition of the property? Have you taken it to court on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being tenant from hell, 10 being walk on water. How would you rate them? When the tenant comes to my house to see it for the first time, I also ask the same question. If I was to call your current landlord, what would they say about you? And you hear what they have to say. And if there's any skeletons in the closet, they'll share it with you. I also mentioned that I do home inspections. I do home visits. So as part of the screening process, it's a requirement I go to see their home. Okay? And I say that right up front. I say that right in the application. I say that right when they first call. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make a home visit to see how you take care of your home. And the reason, how I articulate it, essentially is, as you can see, we spent a lot of money on this house, and so what we're looking for is a family or person that's going to take care of this house. And our experience is that if they take care of their current home, then they're more likely to take care of this house. If they destroy their current home, they're more likely to destroy this house. And that's the reason why we'd like to do a home visit. And most of the time, most people can relate with that. And if they're uncomfortable with that, then obviously they're not going to fill an application. And because you learn so much from a home visit. So the two most things which I do is the landlord verifications, landlord questions, and then the home visit.
Do you self-manage everything?
Uh-huh, yeah. Yeah, and so the home visits, I go there, and I mean, it's not like I'll just in the neighborhood and I just, you make an appointment. I just have to be around here,
Quick little pop-up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, you make an appointment, you're going to say, well, if they know you're coming, they're going to clean up the house, I mean, that's what you're going to say, aren't you? And that's true sometimes, but sometimes, it's pretty sad, but sometimes people don't know their house is dirty. Not in a negative way. It's just like sometimes when you got somebody who lives in, has got, let's say, a pet, okay, like a dog or a cat. I mean, they don't know that the odor from the pet is out there because they get used to it. Okay, but somebody else come into the house for the first time can immediately smell the odor. So it's that kind of thing is that sometimes you don't know, but it takes somebody from the outside coming in, and then you can make observations. So the home visit, in my experience, is the key, because how that house is today is how your house will be in 3 months, guaranteed. Okay, you cannot tell how your house will be by the job that they have, the kind of car that they have, the kind of clothes that they wear, how they talk. It's got nothing to do with it. Whether there are, it's, you go to the home and you'll see it for yourself. And that's the reason why I do the home visits. And the reason why I can do that is because I have a product that they want. Okay? There aren't that many people out here with the product that I have. A quality house in a quality area, quality landlord that is willing and to accept voucher holders. So this is a dream come true for the tier 1 tenant, this house. So you can raise the bar in terms of the screening criteria. So I can say I'm going to your home, and I can explain why. And if you're uncomfortable with that, you won't fill an application. But the tier 1 tenant is not intimidated by that. You want to come to my house? Let's go. Let's go right now. I'll show you. I keep my house exactly the way this is. They're not intimidated by this, and so it's fine, So you make these appointments. They come. You go. You see the house, and at some point you make a decision as to who you select. So that's the screening process at a high level. Obviously, there's a lot of detail behind that. Sorry.
I've had some voucher holders who are homeless. Is that a deal breaker for you if you can't go to their house?
No. Normally, if you have, there are different programs. So if they're homeless, then they're probably in the shelter. Is that what you're saying?
I've had people who are living at hotels and just are homeless and are finding
In between the houses would probably be the biggest.
I've never had an issue. I've never been to a homeless shelter though, to a home inspection. No, I explained this is what I'm going to do, and people say for that. I mean, there are programs where people are homeless. They have like rapid rehousing programs. They have some of these other programs out there. I'm leery of the short-term programs. I want long-term programs, okay? Because the problem with the short-term programs is the fact that after a year, the program may finish, okay? Or the tenant may lose their status, and therefore they're now responsible for the entire rent, which means that they're probably not going to pay. Well, they may not be able to afford the rent, which means that you got issues going on. So I try to understand the program. I'm not going to rule it out, but I try to understand the program, speak to the supervisor of the program, and explain to them clearly what I'm looking for in terms of the long-term tenancy, and is this a program whereby they can transition from a short-term to a long-term. If that's a possibility, then I'm okay with that. But if they say no, all we can do is guarantee for 12 months or whatever it is, I'm not really that keen on that kind of program.
So how long normally the long-term program? Because you say it's based on the rental income. So if they lose the status, then like for example, if they assign like 2 years, right? So like if after 2 years they lose the program, then are they gonna be able to are you gonna renew the lease or?
No, the Section 8 program is a permanent housing program. So, once you have a voucher,
They don't have to re-qualify?
you have to recertify every year, every 2 years, depending on the jurisdiction. So every 2 years you have to go back to the housing authority, and then you got to, apply or, bring in your documentation, and if you still qualify, then you recertify. Or you continue with your voucher. If you graduate, because you make too much or whatever it is, then obviously your voucher could either get downgraded. Say you had a 5-bedroom, you may go down to a 4-bedroom, or if you have a 5, you may go up to a 6 or whatever it is. So every 2 years you have to recertify.
I see. So do you structure your lease like 1 year, 2 years based on the program?
No, in DC it's typically 1 year, then it's month to month thereafter. Okay, I'm looking for long-term tenants. Okay, long-term. My longest tenant is 28 years. Okay, and I regularly have 20 years, 18 years, 15 year, 22-year tenants, and things like that. No, if you think about that, it's crazy, because they want to stay, and so you tend to get a lot more long-term tenants with vouchers than you do with market renters. They just do, because most of the rent is covered by the housing authority.
I've got a statement and then I have another question for you. So I think that the key is he's so patient too. Like he's extremely patient and diligent on finding the right person and the right tenant. We have so many landlords that just want to rush into occupancy because they're trying to just get it rented an additional 5 days, and it always bites them in the butt every single time. So take the extra 7 days. You do open houses 7 days in a row. I love that strategy, right? Because you find the right person. So the next, I guess my question would be financing on them. So a lot of the times our owners are rushing because they have debt. They have a mortgage. They're so worried about how am I going to cover this. So how are you financing these properties?
Well, let me ask that question 2 ways. My experience is better to have a place empty than have the wrong person in your house. Okay? Period. And you have to educate people on that, because you get caught up on the short term. I need to get some income. Okay? Or somebody shows that, well, I got cash, I can move in tonight. And they start waving, result bills in front of your face. I can move in tonight, no question. Okay? And when you got a mortgage due, you got no money, it's very tempting. But believe me, I've had tenants who are difficult, and I realize it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I mean, there's a lot to be said for peace of mind. When you can sleep and you're not worried about this tenant getting over on you. Okay, if you want to do this, I strongly recommend that you spend a day in landlord-tenant court. Okay? Just spend a day down there, go to the back of the room, or in the front of the room, probably better. As long as you're not in front of the judge. Just listen. I mean, you'll hear every single horror story that you can think of. You'll hear every story of failed relationships. Okay? That you can imagine. I mean, crazy story. This guy was in California. He owned a house in DC. He couldn't, so he moved to California. It's paid off, and the tenant stopped paying him rent. And at some point, you couldn't pay his taxes. So the house went to a tax sale. Okay? And guess who bought the house? The tenant. Now you hear stories like that. It's unbelievable. Okay? And
reverse right there.
pardon?
I said that was an Uno reverse.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, can you imagine renting to someone like that?
I mean, he knew when it was gonna go. He was tracking it.
Okay,
So he knew.
and people know the law better than you do. They got free lawyers when you get down to landlord-tenant court. They don't have to pay a dime for a lawyer. You have to pay for a lawyer, and they laugh in your face, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, I mean, that's what happens when you short-circuit the screening process. Okay, you're in a rush to get somebody in. Okay, and then you find out later on that you made the wrong choice or you made the wrong decision, and now it's going to cost you 2, 3, 4, 6 months of lost income. They're going to destroy the house because when people are being evicted, they normally, they don't pay and they normally trash the house on the way out. So it's going to end up costing multiple what you would have quote unquote lost in that month when you rush that process. It's just not worth it, So I'd rather have a place empty than get the wrong person. I'd rather take the time. I'd rather not rent to somebody who doesn't want me to go visit their home. Okay, I'd rather not. And I'd rather wait until I get a tier 1 tenant, and because they want to stay there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So 1 month is irrelevant. Yeah, I mean, got someone for 28 years, okay? If I have to take an extra 2 weeks to fight it, it's meaningless, okay? So you either get caught up in the short term, okay, which is I need to get money, but they'll come back to bite you later on, in my opinion. Because if you make a mistake on the screening, as I said before, that's the key part of all this. That's part 1. Part 2 is, I'm sorry, you got a question?
Okay. Make it fun. So I actually have 2 questions.
Sure. You want 2 questions?
So what's your general average vacancy look like when you're doing a flip or a turnover?
So typically a tenant will, so a tenant calls me and says, well, first of all, a tenant will give you a 30-day notice, okay, and say that they're going to leave on this date. To me, something failed on my part. That's how I see it, okay, that they're leaving. I should have caught that earlier on. I'm now being in a reactive mode, okay, where I try to operate on a proactive mode. Okay, what do I mean by that? I have a lady that does, she's a property manager, but she's real good at interpersonal skills. I'm just so busy. I do inspections on our homes twice a year, okay? I'm too busy, I don't have the time to do that. So I have a lady that does that for me. She works with voucher holders, she understands them, she can connect with them, very empathetic, very good communication skills, personal skills, and so on. So she does those inspections. And it's on 2 levels. One is to inspect the property, but more importantly, it's what I call tenant satisfaction, to make sure my tenants are happy. Okay? That's all I'm focused on, making sure my tenants are happy, because if they're happy, they're more likely to stay. So as part of that discussion is, hey, is everything okay? Is there a problem? Is there any issues that we need to be aware of? That's what she's finding out, intelligence, okay? So that way I get a heads up that something is going wrong at 123 Main Street, okay, with this tenant, okay? It could be the neighborhood, it could be something with a house, it could be something with a landlord. I don't know what it is, but there's a problem. And she's been able to find that out during that discussion. So now I get an opportunity to address the issue. Okay? If I don't address the issue, then I'll get a 30-day notice. Okay? But I have a chance to address that issue beforehand, because the way I see it is that every turnover is going to cost me $12,000, $15,000. Okay? So I need to stop that. I need to prevent that from happening. If it means I have to have good relationships with my tenants, then so be it. So every Mother's Day, all my tenants get bouquets of flowers. Every Christmas, all my tenants get Christmas presents. When the kids get A's at school and show me the report card, they get $50 as a keep it up, guys, present. We have a timeshare in Massanutten. You know where Massanutten is, a couple hours away from here. All my tenants get free vacations. Okay? Now, all that costs $200. Okay, $5, $30. So let's say $200 that cost me. Okay, that's not just free. So what I'm trying to do is to build a firewall. What's your name again?
Alex.
Okay, I'm trying to build a firewall between my tenant and Alex. Because I know Alex is trying to poach my tenant. She's a tier one tenant, and he wants her. Yeah? Okay? So I'm competing with him. So I need to prevent him from poaching. Okay, so I've got to build these firewalls so that my tenant didn't even think about Alex. She's happy here. She wants to stay here. And so Alex doesn't stand a chance of getting her. Does that make sense? So that's the whole shift in the mindset as a landlord compared to the traditional landlord-tenant model. It's a complete mindset shift. Okay? And to me, this works because just because I got a nice house in a nice neighborhood, that in itself is not enough to keep my tenant from Alex. If I'm a crappy landlord, if I'm arrogant, if I'm condescending, if something goes wrong, I don't fix it. You're just about to hold it. That's my attitude. Okay. At some point, the tenant's going to say, "I love the house. I love the neighborhood. I just can't stand this guy." Okay. He was a jerk. And so they'll leave. Okay? So it's all intertwined. It's about having a good product, but also focusing on the most important thing, which is tenant satisfaction and minimize your biggest expense, which is turnover. If you can't address that issue, then it doesn't matter because you're not making any money. And so with the voucher program, the beauty of it is that you have tenants who are, when I tell tenants that, or prospects who are looking at my home, my longest tenant is 28 years and 20 years. I mean, this is music to their ears, okay? This is like, oh, at last, because they want to stay. You regularly hear stuff like, how long do you want to stay here? This is during the application. I want to stay forever. Forever, okay? And it's a dream come true. You're providing an opportunity which they will never have. And it's a win-win because now you can now realize the true power of real estate. The true power of real estate, which is appreciation in this area anyway, the DMV, appreciation, tax benefits, cash flow, equity build. I mean, you can experience all of that if you're able to survive that 5, 10, 15, 20 years of owning that asset. Because if you have difficult tenants, at some point you're going to say, I'm done. I don't care what Dr. Joe said, I'm out of this business. Because having a few tenants from hell could drive you crazy. And you'll just say, I'm done, I can't deal with it, I need peace. You can't get peace. So you just offload this thing, do Amway or Amazon or something, Maybe I'll make more money to tell you Amazon. But if you can attract quality tenants who are going to pay their rent, take care of your property, no drama, and looking to stay a long time, to me, that is the sweet spot. And you can get all that with Section 8. Okay? And not with all Section 8s, but with the Tier 1 Section 8s. Okay,
And I want to reiterate, you don't do anything else but this. You don't do multifamily. You don't do, this is your thing.
No, I don't do, I do single families, row houses. Most of my houses all my houses are in Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, and Prince George's County. I don't have anything in Maryland, Virginia, but they're all scattered around the DMV area. I love this area. The thing that goes for this area, I mean, I've done a lot of travel around the world, and one thing you find, wherever you go in the world, it's the same dynamics, the the same everywhere in the world. If you own real estate in the capital, okay, in the capital area, anywhere in the world, okay, it all plays out the same. That's where the money is. That's where the economy tends to be more resilient than other places. It's a population magnet. People want to go there, and real estate in the capital area in most places in the world. And whenever you think of a country, the first place you think of is the capital. You know, if I say England, you probably think of London. If I say France, you say, you know, Paris. If I say Afghanistan, you probably say Kabul. I mean, you don't even say England. Well, how about, you know, Bradford? I mean, what the hell is Bradford? You know, everyone knows London, and that's where the money is. So if you can own in that area, generally, it goes through cycles, but generally it appreciates in value in most capitals in the world. So if you can own real estate in the capital area, in most places in the world, it always plays out better. Your challenge is to be able to hold on to that asset for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, so you can realize the power of that. Because if you can't, then you don't get it. You know, you've lost that vehicle. And all I'm saying is that Section 8 has the ability to give you that, and if you do it the right way, which is what I've shared with you today. Does that make sense? So hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, that was great. Well, we're gonna let everybody go because we were 15 minutes over time. But thank you so much for coming. That was awesome. Find your niche, build a business around it, and just do it for the next 35 years. Just like Joe, right? So thank you guys for coming. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna have questions. So I'm sure
I can stay here.
yeah, if you need to leave. Right, it's 7:45. So I know we always.
Yeah,
say
I'll
7:30.
stay around until I get the last question. I mean, I know he's got 2 questions.